Hello, my name's Nick. Welcome to my studio. Glad you could join me today because I want to demonstrate for you how to paint a rose. I want to keep this real simple. I want to make this especially for you beginners who maybe you've never even attempted floral painting. I want to make this a very simple video with one rose, some leaves and some background stuff, something that you can use to learn the basics, the fundamentals of floral painting. If you enjoy this video today, I do want to mention that I have a DVD that you can purchase at my website, which is nickhankins.com, and this one's called Backyard Roses. Now it's about an hour long. It's going to be much more in-depth than what we tackle today, and I realize that's a small picture on that DVD, so let me show you the actual painting. It's 16 by 20 and there are a couple of roses, lots of foliage and greenery, some neat background stuff, and it does come with a 16 by 20 pattern, so you can transfer this design to your canvas and you'll have everything in the right place and ready to go. With that said, we'll make haste up to the canvas and we'll get started. Okay, so the first thing I need to show you is my palette, and all of these are oil paints. And I'm going to go around the palette kind of quickly because they're starting to run. I'm going to tell you what I have out here. I have titanium white, cerulean blue, turquoise, sap green, ultramarine blue, magenta, alizarin crimson, cadmium red medium and light, raw sienna, cadmium orange, cadmium yellow, and over here in the corner all by itself I have ivory black. I don't know that we're going to use that, but we might. And the brushes, let me quickly talk about brushes. I'm going to start by applying some medium, some walnut oil medium to the canvas, and I'm just going to use a big natural hair brush, and you can buy these at a paint store, house paint store. Just do invest in a natural bristle brush, Chinese boar bristle, I believe it is. You know, spend $6 or $7. Make sure you don't buy a nylon brush. We might use a soft-haired hockey just for a little bit of blending. Probably the most important brushes that we'll hit today will be the natural hair brights. I use about a 3/4 inch. This is a number 26 and a number 20, which is about a 1/2 inch. And these are natural hair. And you can also buy, if you'd like, I just happen to prefer the natural hair, you can also buy synthetic brights and they work just as well. I just personally, on a personal preference, I like the natural hair. And I believe that's about it, with the exception of maybe this little sable round brush, which I'm going to use right now by dipping into just a touch of my medium. And again, that's walnut oil. I'm going to take a little bit of that, thin down just a little bit of crimson, and we're going to just sort of loosely define where our rose is. We need to know where it is so we can kind of build around it. Just continue that in all the way around so we have a nice kind of loose outline. And this will change. Don't fall in love with the outline. You can definitely change this as you're working. I want the center to be somewhere in there. And from there, as I said, I'm going to switch to a boar bristle brush. And again, I'm just going to dip, and let me hold the my medium up here so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to dip the tip of the brush down in the medium and kind of squeeze it off against the side of the jar. And I want to put a thin coating of this all over the background. Try to use as little as you can, and you'll see the canvas turn glossy and a little darker. At least if you use the gray gesso priming, you will. Going to work that in all over. I want a nice thin and even coating of this. I don't want it to be dripping or runny. Just work that in. Something like that. Oh gosh, I'm hitting my outline. Everybody panics when that happens in class. Would that make you panic? I hope not, because it doesn't matter. As I said, don't fall in love with that outline. That's just so we know where it is. So we've got the canvas coated, and generally what I will do, just to make sure that I don't have too much medium, I just need enough to kind of lubricate the canvas, and then we'll go from there. I'm going to come back with a paper towel and just gently wipe the excess off. Be sure you're using kind of a cheap paper towel if you rub it over the canvas like that, because the really nice absorbent ones will leave lint, and you don't want that. Okay, so let's change brushes. I'm going to go to I don't know if I mentioned this one. I might have left that one out. This is just a coarse hog bristle flat. It's a number 8. I guess it's maybe 5/8 to 3/4 of an inch. Size isn't really important here. It's just something that we can cover the background with. And I'm going to pick up just a small amount of cad yellow to begin with, and I'm going to work this in. Isn't that pretty? When it goes in against that gray. That's why I put the gray on there. Everything looks good against gray. And I'm painting this on very quickly and very loose. I'm not taking a lot of time. And I'm holding the brush kind of far back on the handle. Can you see that? I don't have it down here. Holding it back on the handle, and I'm just kind of rocking and rolling, letting this color go in. Just kind of all over the place like that. We might pick up a small touch of white, titanium white, and if you want this to be a little brighter, say, we'll work a little white in there with it and let it walk out into the background very loosely. Don't tighten up. Keep this nice and loose. Really get your arm into it. Make it gestural painting. Okay, so I'm going to wipe the brush just on a paper towel. Grab it in a paper towel and wipe it like that. And I try to wipe the brush always by sort of squeezing it if I can help it. So you're grooming the bristles back to a chiseled edge. And that's more important in a few minutes when we're working with the natural hair brights. We need to take good care of those. But it's good to be in the habit. Okay, so next I'm going to pick up just a touch of sap green, and I'm going to add a little touch of this into the background, as well as maybe let's take a little cerulean blue. I'm going to add some cerulean down here. Again, still holding that brush back on the handle. And just allow this to mix and blend with some of the yellow. So you'll get a lot of nice greens that way. Maybe a little up here. Matter of fact, up here we might switch to a little touch of turquoise and some white. That turquoise is quite strong by itself, so I want to add a little touch of white with it. Keep it under control. Yeah, that's what I want. I love adding the turquoise in florals. It's such a beautiful color. Again, still very loose, just kind of bouncing around. Just adding a nice colorful background. Let's see, while we have relatively blue-green dominant background, I'm going to add a little magenta to the brush. And again, just a little touch of white. I don't want it to be too strong. Touch of magenta. Maybe a little ultramarine with it. So we get more of a violet tone. Yeah, that's nice. Loosely, I try to tile it. I try to avoid adding just one spot of a color if I introduce a new color. It's a good idea to try to bounce it around in a few different places. So you have a nice variety of things going on. Something like that. Okay, now let's go to that nice soft hockey brush that I was talking about earlier. We'll come in with this and just kind of gently around close to the flower. Blend some of these colors together. As you reach out for the edges, I want to soften the edges just a little more so I can increase the pressure like this. And we're just about ready to add some foliage. We can think about leaves bouncing around. We'll start and use that synthetic flat, that 1/2 inch flat, or bright, I should say. It's actually a bright. Flats are a little longer, brights have a shorter hair. And we'll use some sap green and ultramarine blue, about 50-50, I suppose. A little touch of medium. And when I say a little touch of medium, what I'm saying is I'm just going to dip the corner of the brush down into the medium so I get just a touch like that. I don't want it dripping wet. I don't want it running anywhere. And when we think about a leaf, what I want to do here is just add a little color, kind of come down to a point like that. The brush is loaded to a nice chiseled edge. And then I'm going to use a series of overlapping strokes that are directed towards the stem end of the leaf, and then finally just with the chisel edge I'll cut a little vein down through the center like that. So now that you know what's going on, just going to kind of repeat that stroke. Add a few more leaves to the painting. That easy. Do you think it would be that easy? It is. It is. There's nothing to it. Just have to practice. That's the name of the game. No matter what you're painting, you have to practice. And practice the right things. Maybe right there. Again, I wiggle a little color in, allow it to come to a point. Overlap a series of strokes. Strokes get a little shorter as they reach the end of the leaf, and then I pull that little vein out. Let's see, maybe another one right there. Let them overlap. You see that one picking up some of the background color? That's great. That's great. Go for it. Allow it to do that. Don't try to fight that. I'm just going to come right through here and spread a little dark. Spread a little dark, and then we're going to turn it into leaves. Get a little more ultramarine blue. Just sort of eyeball it and see where we want a few leaves. There's another one. Maybe one's coming right out of here. Just allow them to overlap. That's how they grow. They don't try to get out of each other's way. Maybe one more right there. Nice variety. Have them kind of turning in different directions. I don't want them all pointing the same way. Try to make sure your leaves point in different directions. Looks sort of strange if they're all pointing down. They look like they're sad or they got tired or something. It's odd looking. Odd looking. Maybe just use the corner of the brush and pull a little stem up like that, and we'll add another that are a little further away from the flower itself. And that's a beautiful chance to contrast against that light value with a dark value. Something like that. Something like that. Maybe another one right there. All those strokes, see how they're directed back towards the stem end of the leaf there? And maybe here's a little different type of leaf, just to add some dynamic, linear things to the composition. So you can just twist the brush, start on the skinny part, twist it, and twist it back. You can make long tapered leaves like this. Just a different shape of leaf to kind of break things up. I want to break up the color too. It's getting a little too similar, so I'm going to add quite a bit of cadmium yellow to my color, and it's going to come out quite a bit lighter. And maybe here we'll twist in a lighter colored leaf. There's another one. We don't want to get too many of the same color, so again I'll change, wipe the brush, pick up a little turquoise, maybe turquoise and white. Since I'm a turquoise fan, we'll just add a little more. And maybe a couple of these leaves are turquoise in color, like that. And just play and experiment. Try different color combinations. Whatever you feel like. That's pretty good right there. We'll leave that alone. And then we can get to the rose, start that going. And I'm going to switch and go to the 3/4 inch bright, or the number 26. And this time, instead of taking a touch of medium, I'm going to go ahead and dip. I'm going to dip the brush. I usually in class I refer to a touch, a dip, or a dunk. This is going to be a dip, where we dip the entire width of the brush into the medium, back out. Got quite a bit on the brush now. A dunk would be all the way to the bottom. Flatten out the hairs on the bottom of the jar. That way you get lots of medium. I don't need quite that much because we don't have a huge flower. But I'm going to thin down some crimson. And this is quite thin, and you'll see as this goes on just how thin that is. Very thin. Very thin. No globs of color. Nothing chunky. Just overlapping the green slightly. And if you pull some of that green color in from your leaves, that's great. That's great. Adding it in like this. Nice and loose, ragged edge. Wiping the brush out again. Wipe it back to a chisel edge. Take good care of those brushes, and they'll be good to you too. I'm going to pick up a little magenta. This is dry now, no medium. Magenta and ultramarine blue. Probably 1 magenta to 2 ultramarine blue. And I'm going to decide again where that center was. It was right about there, so I'm going to wiggle in some nice dark color. And there is kind of a bowl-shaped portion of the rose right here where the newest petals are packed rather tightly. And it forms a little bowl or cup right there. Now I'm going to wipe the brush off, so I'm only working with the paint that's there. And this flower is facing in that direction, so I'm going to take this color and fan it out in that direction, like this. So the flower is looking that way. Then I'm going to switch. I'm going to go to the smaller, the number 20, bright. And I'm going to load this now with dry cad red medium to a chiseled edge, of course. Always load the brush to a chiseled edge. I can't think of a time during floral painting when you're not going to be loading the brush to a chiseled edge, so it's a pretty safe bet that that's what we're going to be doing. Now let's begin back here, kind of in the back of the flower, and I'm just going to direct these strokes towards the center, or toward the stem, where the stem would attach to the flower underneath there. And we'll come back, overlap that last one slightly. And what I'm doing, I don't know if you can see it or not in the video, but what I'm doing as I work this color in is I push down and I release. Do that slowly. Push down and release the brush so the light color blends into the darker color. And we're just going to continue to work our way around the back side of the flower. We'll begin to now have some petals that are sort of flopping out. These are older petals that are coming away from that center bowl of the rose. But the strokes are still directed towards that stem. That's important. How about out here? See how they're still directed towards the center? And we need to define that little bowl. We need to define the front of that little bowl, which would be right about there. Something like that. I'm going to soften the bottom just a little bit. And we'll go ahead and put on the oldest petals down here in front, always directing them towards the center. Same with this one. Overlapping the strokes just slightly. And we'll come back up here. Maybe let's go ahead and kind of figure out what's going on here. I'm going to take my hockey brush and just soften this a little more and along the back side there. But leave that top rather well defined. This edge is quite close to us, so we're gonna leave that alone. And I'm just gonna kind of take and cut in sort of the feeling of some little foreshortened petals right there. And then we can come back and begin to layer some petals on like this, working in front of that previous row. Now you might be saying, you find yourself in the same boat here as I am. I don't have a lot of contrast between this petal and these petals back here, but that's okay for now. What I'm worried about right now is just sort of finding everything. I just want to find the petals. I want to figure out where they are. I think of this stage as sort of like a sculptor carves out the shape from the rock. Just kind of discovering the form, and we can define it more later. We're not really to highlights just yet, but we're getting there. Maybe there's a little petal right there that's kind of foreshortened down low, close to the bottom. And we can add a little something here that's reaching up out of the center, a little petal there. And we'll just sort of continue on around here. Again, if anything looks a little strange or you have any hard edges, use that little hockey and just knock them down like that. Very light touch. I'm just touching with the corner. I don't need the whole brush in action there. I don't need the whole brush in full effect. Okay, where else? I'm just looking for spots that look a little bare. Maybe right there. Kind of layer in another little petal tied against the base of the bowl. And Maybe one more right there. So that fills it out just a little bit. Now let's go in and we'll define some of these petals a little more. We'll pick them out. We'll go to CAD Red Light and we'll begin to get a little definition that way. So I'm going to use CAD Red Light and find like this edge. See that pop out now? See, everything's okay. Don't panic. That's one of the things I have to caution everybody about when you're painting florals. If it doesn't look like a flower immediately, don't panic. It's not supposed to. You have to go through the steps. You have to go through the procedure to get there. That's important. Don't rush your way. Don't try to get to the finish line before the race is over. Just looking for anything that needs that little extra touch, little extra shot of light. Something like that. I think these little foreshortened edges right along the top of the bowl right there, they probably need a little, maybe that's a little bit of a petal that cuts across the front of the bowl like that. We'll knock him down just a little bit. Anything to add a little more dimension is great. And you may very well reach a point, even with CAD Red, where it doesn't quite show anymore. See, I'm still in good shape down here against some of these darks. However, there are a few spots that need just a little extra kick, I think, so I'm going to reach for cadmium orange now. It's a little lighter. I can get a little more sparkle out of it. See that? Just be careful with the orange. If you can get too much of this too fast, pretty soon you have an orange rose instead of a red rose. We don't want that. So be real choosy with the orange where you put it. Very selective. You know, let me say this while I'm highlighting here. This is going to be a little repetitious. YouTube videos are great. DVDs are great. Books are great. But there's just no substitute for hands-on learning. If you live near a great instructor, go take classes with that person. There's no substitute for a class. You'll really pick up a lot of great information. And there are a lot of good instructors out there, so find one. Find one and take a class. And if you happen to be near me, I'd love for you to come paint with me. Okay, it's shaping up pretty good there. I'm going to switch to my round brush. I'm going to get a little touch of medium. And a little sap green and crimson, about half and half. Sap green, alizarin crimson. I'm going to make a nice dark brown, and I'm going to take this, come right into the center of the flower, and just do a little dot, 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 dot. You might not be able to see that yet because it's all pretty dark, but it's there, I promise. A few little dots of that. I'm going to reach and find a little cad yellow. Maybe cad yellow and sap green. I don't want that to get too bright. Cad yellow and sap green. Pretty dry. Quite a bit of paint on the end of the brush, but fairly dry. Yeah. Just add a few little highlighted touches to the center there. Don't go too crazy with anything like that. Now I'm going to jump back to that synthetic bright, that number 20 bright I was using earlier, and I'm going to load that brush also with some sap green and cadmium yellow. Make a nice bright, almost a lime green. Some of these leaves are a little hard to see the edges, so we're going to come back and just tint those edges or highlight some of those edges with a little bit of this brighter color. Same way we painted the leaf. Touch and release, press and release. I don't know if I mentioned that as we painted the leaves, but you're also using that press and release stroke just like we used on the flower to paint the petals. Pressing and releasing.
What else do we need? Maybe on the back side of a few of these leaves, I'm going to actually pause for just a moment and rinse that brush. That little odorless paint thinner. Wipe it out. I'm going to pick up some white and cerulean blue. Probably 50-50, maybe a little more cerulean than white. Just make a nice cool blue, and I'm going to come back on the back side of a few of these leaves, or maybe like right here is a good chance to use that color. And just add a little reflected light to the back side. Still pressing and releasing. Where else do we need some? Well, we don't need too much, maybe a little right there. Just kind of watching for contrasts. I want to make sure I don't lose my contrasts. A little bit here and there, something like that. Coming out from the bottom of the rose, I'm going to rinse my little round brush out, some thinner, dry it off. Coming from the bottom of the rose, now this is going to take a little medium. I'm going to go back to my alizarin crimson and sap green mixture. About 50-50 again, something like that. And I'm just going to find, let's say the stem would be right in there, and maybe we see it wiggle out from behind the leaf right there. Maybe there's a couple of thorns on it. I don't know. Something like that. And maybe while we're working with that thin mixture, maybe a little more green with it, we might add just a few little veins or vines, some linear stuff coming up out of the arrangement. Can look kind of neat. Again, that's something else you want to be careful with. Don't add too much. Just something to kind of finish it off. Okay, so we put the wraps on that one. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you've learned some stuff that you can use in your paintings at home. And I hope you'll come paint with me. I'll be in Washington, D.C. for the World of Color Expo and Las Vegas for creative painting. So check out the website. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.